Greetings. My name is Michael Miller, and this is a Michael Miller Pilates YouTube live broadcast out to my presumed Cornu course student in you. And to me, a Cornu course student is interested in Cornu and Cornu tension and movement. And perhaps that's all. This image and the physics of the tension that it points to came out of Pilates, and the purpose of my broadcast is to empower you to survive as a Pilates instructor, aware of the ideal within Joe's original work, and aware of Cornu tension and the role it plays in movement in the body. So number one in my list that I have to add later, it seems, I'm just on my phone, computer's not open, and go live via an app to get special effects like zooming and sepia. And later I have to go on my laptop and take what I end up using as the text I type into the Facebook that cascades off of this into the live broadcast once it's done processing, or even while it's processing I can add the notes to this live stream in case you're interested how it happens. The number one title is the Michael Miller Pilates Explains Why. Without addressing any of the other 10,000 manifestations of Pilates. A distinguishing characteristic to Michael Miller Pilates is that it wonders why and seeks an answer. At least just hearing it because, or how dare you challenge me because, whatever, you know. I'm about evaluating what makes sense both tactily and intellectually, and my view of Pilates is an effort to explain why Pilates is what it is. And that comes directly from Joe's book, his definition, his promise, and his sequence. And so, if you want to learn about why Pilates is what it is, then review some of my recordings here or on Facebook. There's more volume more recently. Michael Miller Pilates, befriend, and you can get access to other recordings, assuming you might want one. And if not, that's okay, but you're listening now, and I'm hoping to give you the best that I have to share while I have a chance to share it. And so leading off, the number one thing is my message to you that Michael Miller Pilates makes sense. And to that extent, Michael Miller Pilates explains why. It explains why the exercises are in the order that they're in. It explains why you have to press the flow. It explains why in a lot of different realms that are too numerous and voluminous to go into with just me assuring you that Michael Miller Pilates makes sense. And one of the reasons it makes sense is because it satisfies, for me, the intellectual curiosity about why is it what it is? Why? Joseph Pilates was a survivor, and you can start there and work your way through it. Number two is that riding a bike requires spirit. So riding a bike requires, and whatever the word comes next, whatever description you use for it, when you ride a bike, it takes that tactile interaction, that attention that is necessary in order to ride the bike. Follow that? So when I say riding a bike requires spirit, it's in Michael Miller Pilates that spirit is interpreted as the listener, the observer, right? That which pays attention to their situational awareness, the raw input. Just like riding a bike requires spirit, doing Pilates requires spirit as well. My point of view, my version of Pilates, body, mind, and spirit. Spirit is what it takes to ride the bike, and spirit is what it takes to get the complete coordination of body, mind, and spirit. To me, that's a capacity of life, I guess, because you can look at animals observing their environment, and you can look at plants observing their environment, and I assume as above, so below. But spirit, when it comes to being a Pilates instructor, is knowing that spirit is required if you're going to ride the bike. If you're going to do Pilates, if you're going to experience Pilates, it requires the presence of the listener, of the observer. All of that la-la, right? So there's my comparison between what spirit is in Pilates, from Michael Miller Pilates, and what spirit is when it comes to riding a bike. And the comparison that I'm trying to lean on there to point to what it takes to do Pilates is the same thing that it takes to ride a bike, is the same thing that it takes to drive a race car, or to fly a glider, or to be a hand glider. Anything that requires your presence in order to ensure your survival of the situation you're in, that's spirit. And when I look at it that way, encourage you to at least understand looking at it that way, so that if you want to survive as a Pilates instructor, you want them walking away happy and having a great sensational experience. Not an enlightened one mentally, but one that satisfies that complete coordination of all three capacities, the body, the mind, and the spirit. So here I am again, rubbing back on the Pilates view, when really I maybe should just let that go altogether and focus on Cornu and the Cornu view of tension between oppositional rotation of axes and how that's inherent in the biomechanics of the body. And my title is You Find Cornu, as a question. Once you find Cornu, you never go back. It's like learning how to ride a bike. Once you get the hang of what it takes to ride the bike, you devote as much spirit as needed to accomplish riding the bike. Once you can grasp it intellectually before you get it sensationally, right? You can look at this and in some way have a sense of rotating at the axis of the shoulders and rotating at the axis of the ears and opposing one rotation against the other, to create Cornu tension. And once you're introduced to that notion, and especially once you find it sensationally in your body, it's like, well, of course I knew that all along, and if I hadn't learned it from you, I'd have learned it from somebody else, because it's obvious in my body that I'm able to ride the bike. I'm able to create Cornu tension, and I'm able to understand Pilates as an idea, which gives me an answer to why it is what it is. I think you have to pursue the why to get to the view. And if you're listening to this, in some way you're interested in the point of view that I'm painting, either to demonize me or to allow me to put some input in there into your thinking, into your perception, into your tactical awareness of, and this brings me to the number 4 and the last thing of my broadcast today, is recognize the significance of what you know. I mean, really, how many people are doing Pilates in the world? How many of them are even coming a hair's breadth close to something like the traditional classical work? And then out of those, all of those that claim a direct link to classical and traditional, right, the real whatever, are aware of or willing to share the view of Pilates as an ideal, and sharing Cornu tension, regardless of what you think about Pilates or my view of Pilates or your view of Pilates, or if you have no view of Pilates. Cornu tension is like riding a bike. And once your mind sees the idea of oppositional rotation, and once your body can reach for that kind of embrace, tension, right? I don't know of anybody that gives up or dismisses or tries to unlearn that which empowers them with more capacity to survive by how they engage their body to move through space. So those are my 4 things. That Michael Miller Pilates explains why. That riding a bike requires spirit, that's number 2. And that when you find Cornu, it's like finding out how to ride a bike, because it requires the presence of body, mind, and spirit. And spirit is what it takes in your capacity to be present, that somehow is either pre-mental from the brainstem head or in the field. I don't care. I don't think you need to either, in order to be a really sensational Pilates instructor, because what matters is safety, and within that, striving for as much of the experience as possible within the time frame that's allowed. And if you look at my numbers, you know that not that many people are aware of this point of view. And that from my point of view, this point of view gives you a huge advantage in surviving as a Pilates instructor. Because you can explain why. Because you can deliver the experience. And you do that because you can recognize the significance of what you know. So after my 4 things in my notes, I usually go CC arrow question mark, which means to me, the Cornu core, what to them? What do I leave with to you as a student of Cornu? And in this case, rather than something ideal and towards the understanding of it, it's toward the money aspect of it. And to encourage you, like I've encouraged everyone all along, I encourage you to be a licensed affiliate of Michael Miller Pilates so that you can distinguish yourself by a trademark that has a great future in front of it, regardless of its creator. Long after the messenger has been dismissed and died, it's the message of Cornu, especially, because that's all mine, that I got from you by asking me questions. It's brought me closer to reality. I've heard that phrase on television today, and it's a great phrase. I hope what I share with you in Pilates, as a Pilates instructor, helps you be closer to the reality of whatever it is that it is. And to me, your financial advantage someday may depend on how you distinguish yourself beyond whatever other means you use to distinguish yourself, because so much pressure has come about with the multiplication of Pilates into the 10,000 things. Okay. I'm not sure how this is going on YouTube Direct. But I came back and did it again, so maybe I'll be back again tomorrow through this media. Life can't live forever. Read between the lines, see behind the curtain, add 2 and 2, direct your thinking, and last to be first in your mind is Geist.